in Alamoti, signals from two different time slots are combined instead of two different receivers in MRRC. And I had also talked about the diversity gain, but not the array gain. In terms of diversity gain, we had obtained diversity order of 2, even in case of two time slots, what we had seen. But array gain, since we have only one receive antenna, we don't produce any, we don't get to see any array gain. Okay. Now, that is one thing, but what are all the drawbacks of Alamoti scheme? The drawback of this Alamoti scheme is somewhere around 2.8 to 3 dB performance you will tend to lose. Okay, and I had also given a block diagram for 2x2 system and channel estimator combiner with channel estimator, second channel estimator, and ML estimator to get S1 and S2. Okay. So first of all, we'll see what is that ML detection, and for the sake of simplicity and to understand what is that ML, we need to understand two things here. So if you're talking about NR cross NT configuration, NR cross NT, if you talk about NR cross NT, that is the standard practice, you can write is equal to write it as y is equal to hx plus n or y is equal to hs plus n. Okay. Now, if you talk in terms of NT cross NR, then you have to write it as y is equal to sh plus n or xh plus n. Both are one and the same. Okay. This you have to keep it in mind. NR cross NT means y is equal to hx plus n. NT cross NR, if you talk about, if it is up to you, how do you decide, how do you want to write it? Okay, sh plus n, you have to write it. Okay, this is one thing you need to understand. Okay, fine. Next implementation is, next point is, my screen is visible, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, we will take the terminology as y is equal to hs plus n. Hs plus n. Okay. Now, I had written an equation in the earlier classes, something like arg max of s belong to something s to the power of m or something like that, or I might have omitted this s belong to s to the power of m into function of detecting y given yes, something like that I had written. Okay, if you were to write this, what does it mean? What does it mean? With an example, we have to understand what it is. See, maximum likelihood detection or ML detection is carried out by a brute force or exhaustive searching of all the candidate vectors. Now, if I talk about candidate vectors, I am talking about the Euclidean distance, ED, Euclidean distance. Okay. Now, this is one point, this is another point, -1, +1, plus j, minus j. Okay. Now, if this point is radiated, and if you tend to say something like, if this point is radiated over the space, that is nothing but +1 is radiated. Now, instead of this, if you have an offset QPSK point, something like here, that is also same. Okay, and this will be 1 plus j, and this will be -1 plus j, so on and so forth. Everything you can write that. Now, if I talk about a point has been radiated, let's say 1 plus j has been radiated, it means this has to be coded in terms of bits. This 1 plus j has to be written in terms of a digit 0 0 or 1 1 or 1 0 or 0 1. Any of these constellation points, any of these 4 digits means these digits have to be used in order to radiate this point. Now, what I'm talking about the ML detection here is, ML detection is carried out by brute force or exhaustively searching for all the candidate vectors. Means if this point is radiated First of all, you will receive a point at the receiver. Let's say you will receive a point at the receiver. Instead of 1 plus j, you will say something like 1 plus 2j or something like that you will receive. Means this point might be shifted to this location or somewhere to the next location. How to identify that point? Okay. Now exhaustively searching for all the candidate vectors means I am searching whether this point has been transmitted or this point has been radiated or this or this. Now, how would I know this is radiated? As I told you in the last class, it will understand based on the minimal distance. We will see what is that minimal distance and how do I go about it. So ML detection criteria is very simple. ML detection is carried out by exhaustively searching for all candidate vectors. That's brute force and selecting the maximum likely one. Maximum likely one. For 1 plus j, 1 plus 2j could be maximally likely. Okay. Now, if you have M transmit antennas with a signal alphabet, say, let's say S. Okay. And the number of candidate vectors will be S to the power of M because of the constellation order, where S denotes the size of the alphabet. Okay. Now, when transmitter is equipped with, let's say, this 4 PSK, or this is also termed as 4 QAM also, offset QPSK in a standard case, you can call it as 4 QPSK also, it's not a problem. When a transmitter is equipped with 2 antennas, let's say, 2 antennas, okay, and let's say 4 QAM is employed or a QPSK is employed, means 4 points have been employed in order to radiate. What do we have? We have somewhere around 4 square combinations, isn't it so? That is 16 possible candidates for identifying this signal S, isn't it so? Now we have 4 points and 4 QAM or QPSK has been used, and QPSK is used here, QPSK is used here. And what is the configuration? That we have 4 square, that is 16 possible candidates for the symbol S. So using any modulation method or a certain modulation method, it can be shown that number of candidate vectors grows exponentially. Now, if you use 2 cross 2, this is something like this. Suppose if I use 128 cross 128, what happens to this 4 QAM? Look at the complexity of this 4 QAM or a QPSK cell. Now the power will raise based on number of transmit and receive antennas. In that case, your brute force or your exponential or exhaustive searching what you are carrying out will be very complex. Will be very complex. That's why low complexity decoders have been built in order to reduce this effect. Now, the next thing is this. Now for a function f y given s, or you can write it as s tilde given s, whatever. Okay. Y given s. If I write like this, f given s or y given s for a function, this denotes the likelihood function of s for a given received signal vector. Now, as I told you, this is nt cross 1 received vector. In order to understand what is this s, okay, the likelihood function of s for a given received signal. You have received this signal vector y. For a received signal vector y, you are identifying what is your signal that is radiated. Okay. Now, for fy given s, SML or small sml or the ML detection criteria, ML detection criteria is written as argmax given that S, this belongs to capital S to the power of M, f of y given s. If you write like this, what does it mean? It apparently, or it can also be written as argument minimum s, small s, given s to the power of m. What is my function? How do I arrive at estimating the symbol s? That is y minus hs Frobenius norm square. That's it. Maximum likelihood is nothing but identifying the minimum distance of the symbol that is detected with respect to the symbol that is radiated. What do you mean by fx? Argmax x of fx represents the argument of x or argument of s that leads the function f of s to maximum responsibility or minimum value. And you have to observe one more thing here, that is s power m. This is a m-dimensional Cartesian product of s. That's all. So I hope I have given you the idea. So understand this. If there is a priori probability of s is available, so this maximum likelihood detection can be formulated, which is based on CSIT or CSIR. Let's consider a simple example in order to understand what it is, and then we will move forward with our discussion on Alamoti and how to decode with ML. Now let's consider a simple 2x2 system. I'm not talking about any MIMO or something like this here. 2x2 is multi-in, multi-out. That's all. MIMO, I'll introduce you to MIMO at the last minute of this class. Okay. Let's say I'm using a 4QAM configuration. Okay. Now, without taking into account the signal energy, now let's say I have H. I have defined H in this fashion. Let's say I have something like 2 plus I is a complex vector, a 4 is a complex vector, 2 is a complex vector, 2I is also a complex vector. What does it mean? H11 or S11, H12, H21, H22. That is your vector. And I'll also define noise, N or Z, whatever it is. I'll write it as something like I by 4 and 1 by 2. Okay, respectively. Now, I will write something like S is transmitted. Your symbol S has to be transmitted. What is your S? That S could be, let's say, minus 1 minus I and minus 1 plus I. Those two symbols have to be radiated. Okay. Now, what does it have to do with our detection scheme? How my ML works? ML works in this fashion. Let's say this is your channel gain. This is the noise component which is getting added. This is my S. I will write everything in terms of NR cross NT, not NT cross NR. Okay. Y is equal to HS plus N. Okay. In this fashion, I will write. Okay. Now, if I write Y is equal to HS plus N and Y is equal to H is what? H is this 2 plus I, 4, 2, 2I into S. S is the vector that is radiated, minus 1 minus I, minus 1 plus I, plus the noise component, that is 1 by 2 here, I by 4 here. Okay. Now what do I get? I'll get something like minus 4.5 plus I minus 4 minus 3.7. Okay, this is my S symbol vector that has been radiated from two antennas. Okay, this is what Y I am going to get. Okay, fine. Now let's understand this. I will write as DML. ML detection is norm Y minus HS square. Norm you have to find out. Simple norm, the L2 norm, what you call L2 norm, you have to find out. I'll write a table. Okay, you don't have to write all these things. I'll write some values. You can calculate for all those values because there are 16 combinations. I cannot calculate and write every value. Some first 10 values I will write. Okay, this is my S. I will write here. Okay, and this is my DML. Okay. Whatever I'm going to write here would be S, signal S. Here I will write that. Okay. What are all the symbols that you can transmit? What could be the distance? Oh God. Fine. Now if I transmit -1 plus I, comma, -1 plus I symbol, there could be a possibility of transmitting -1 plus I and -1 plus I from two different antennas. The distance matrix based on hs y is equal to hx plus n and y minus hs norm, what you have calculated, will be 36.3. Similarly, if I transmit -1 plus I, comma, -1 minus I, if I transmit this, the distance would be somewhere around 52.3 for a given noise term. What I'm writing S is for a given noise term. That's why this DML is giving me these values. If I transmit -1 plus I, comma, 1 plus I will get somewhere around 106.3. If I transmit -1 plus I, comma, -1 plus I and 1 minus I, my distance will be somewhere around 122.3. And this is my fifth one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this fifth one is I'll take my symbol what I have radiated, -1 minus I and -1 plus I. That is the symbol, I think. -1 minus I, -1 plus I. Yeah. If I transmit this somewhere around 0.3, I got, and similarly -1 minus I and -1 minus I, if I radiate somewhere around 80.3, so on and so forth. For all the combinations, I am going to get somewhere around all these values. Okay. So similarly, and I'll write one more point here, 1 minus I and -1 plus 1 minus I and -1 plus I. If I calculate the distance, it will be somewhere around 32.3. Now the brute force, the ML decoding, what it does is it will try to calculate all these points and it will figure out what is the minimum value, what you have obtained through that Fibonacci norm, y minus hx square. So it will give you a value 0.3, and this could be your point which is radiated. You can calculate for any number of values by changing the noise. And there is one problem here, and the noise, if the channel is extremely correlated, if this H is extremely correlated, then what happens is the distance look pretty similar. Then also you can identify by differentiating all those things with the channel uncorrelated matrix into consideration. But if the transmitter correlation and channel correlation both exist, then almost everything will get, every DML metric you will get is a minimal metric. So it becomes extremely difficult for the receiver to identify what has happened at the transmitter. So if you look at this, kind of similar values like -1 plus I and -1 plus I is a pretty lesser value, that is 36.3. And 1 minus I and -1 plus I, only one change, -1 minus I and -1 plus I. So the metric shows a smaller distance. Now for this, the metric shows a distance which is, now if you write this, if you transmit this, and if somewhere because of the noise component, if this dot is very near this DMML I'm calculating, so that maximizes that argument max of function y received with s transmitted. That is what it means, that maximizes this. So that is the minimum distance of the radiated symbol across all these points. So this is a pretty simple way of explaining what is this maximum likelihood detection scheme. So if you observe this, the DMML would be around this 0.3, whatever you have received. If you calculate that, fifth DMML will be approximately 0.0042, becomes the smallest one. Okay, and then you can write it in terms of S estimate or S tilde. Estimated symbol would be minus 1, minus I, and my whatever, minus 1, minus I, and minus 1 plus I as the symbol that has radiated. Okay. Similarly, you understand the difficulty here. Now, for only 2 cross 2 antennas, you have to calculate it for 16 iterations or 16 times of brute force. It will happen. Now, if you have something like 128 cross something antennas, 128, even it is 128 cross 4 means, then definitely you have, even if you were to use that 4 QAM, 4 to the power of this term, for all the receivers that you have to calculate, this brute force, it will definitely calculate and it will give you optimal result, no better than any optimal result you will get. But this is a complex way of finding out. And there are other techniques which you can think of, like minimum mean square error estimation decoding and maximum likelihood, compared to maximum likelihood decoding, minimum mean square error estimation criterion if you use, and that reduces the computational complexity by 25-30% compared to this brute force. And but the trade-off would be somewhere around, if you are getting ML at 10 dB, you may have to get it somewhere around 11.5 dB. Some trade-off will always be there. This is one kind of detection. Okay. And if I talk about what is that ML detection and how MMSE can be integrated with ML detection and all, that becomes another big issue. So ML you have understood, maximum likelihood you have understood. Now we'll try to apply this to our Alamotti scheme and MRRC. That is what I want. So maximum likelihood, criterion or demodulation for MRRC or MRC and Alamotti. Now, if I take this into consideration, I have to see something like both MRRC and Alamotti, what forms of the combining that I have used. The combining forms are pretty similar to Alamotti as well as for my MRRC. So I will write it in terms of S tilde is equal to, instead of using that HS plus N, I will write it in terms of a constant term KS plus Z. Okay, KS plus Z. See, this S tilde represents what? This S tilde represents the output of the combiner. Okay, just try to focus here. Just try to understand this concept, output of the combiner. And K is a constant. Okay, that depends on the channel gain values from transmitter, how many transmitters you have used and how many receivers you have. So that is your chain. Okay, and S is the symbol vector that has to be detected. S is the transmitted symbol. Okay, this we know. ZRN is the noise term, that also we know. Additive white, usually circularly symmetric additive white Gaussian noise with identically and independent and identically distributed random variable. So Gaussian noise with zero mean and variance can be written always in terms of noise, or Z is uniformly distributed circularly symmetric complex Gaussian noise. C, this is capital C, written with one line over here, or you can write it as C, something like this. So okay, this is my C complex. Okay, C is written with a line over here, and normally distributed with zero mean and variance as sigma n square or sigma z square. Okay, uniform. Okay, the symbol being transmitted is chosen from any MRI constellation points. That is, if I write that as A, that is any constellation of order A, A1, A2, A3, so on and so forth, up to AM. Okay, MRI constellation points. The maximum a posteriori estimates of S, which is denoted as S tilde, S tilde is expressed as S tilde. How do you express? This is argmax. Argmax of symbol S. If you write like this, S belongs to S to the power of m is understood. So probability of detecting S given this is S tilde, the estimate. Probability of S slash S bar denotes the probability that symbol S was sent, and given that output of the combiner is S tilde. The symbol that maximizes this probability is the map estimate, and the Euclidean distance with which you are going to calculate is the minimum distance decoding. ML function is ML function is, what did I write? S tilde bar S. S tilde bar S. Okay. Yeah. Now phi given S. Yes, correct. Okay. Now, Bayes theorem, you know. Using Bayes theorem, a priori probabilities of the symbols being transmitted are all the same. So that is probability of S is equal to AI, if I write, is 1 by m. That is I is equal to 1 to m. So from this, how do I write? S tilde given S, S tilde given S, S cap is equal to argmax of S. So which maximizes this. This is ML function, and right, this is ML function. Okay. What is this probability of S tilde given S is called the likelihood probability. Likelihood probability. Now, our problem is not this. We can rearrange, we can write this in terms of anything. Our problem is noise. That is Z, that is uniform random variable, complex uniform random variable with zero mean, and variance is sigma c square. How do you write this in terms of this PS tilde S? With S tilde given S, this is 1 by 2 pi sigma z square into e to the power of minus norm of, given the function S tilde minus some constant, since I've used k, I'll use k, yes, norm square divided by 2 sigma z square, because this is AWGN. So I will follow the same Gaussian random distribution. So with unit normal, that is with mean 0 and sigma z square unit variance, I'll write this function as 1 by square root of 2 pi sigma z square into e to the power of minus some term, that is, let's say x term, divided by 2 sigma z square. See, the value of S that maximizes the value of S that maximizes the whole thing, PS tilde by S, is a symbol that minimizes the exponent of this equation. That's all. Very simple. Remember this: the value of S which maximizes the function, that is probability of S tilde given S, is the symbol that minimizes the exponent of this equation. That's all. So I would like to write this in terms of S tilde or S cap as arg minimum given S norm of S tilde minus Ks norm square. So ML can be rewritten in this fashion. So if you carefully observe from your linear algebra concepts, argmin of S can be written in terms of S tilde minus Ks norm square. S tilde minus Ks, how do you write? Since this is complex conjugate or the Hermitian, you have argmin of given S can be written it in terms of S tilde minus Ks into S tilde minus Ks conjugate. Hermitian, if you use it, it becomes complex. Instead of conjugate, if you use H, something of H, that becomes complex conjugate, or the gains of the channel matrix is complex. So for the sake of understanding, I'm writing it as conjugate. So expand this. If you expand this, what happens? This becomes argmin of S in terms of S, sorry, it becomes S tilde square minus S tilde Ks conjugate minus Ks S tilde conjugate plus K square into S. So again you reduce this. What is S tilde minus S whole square? That is S tilde square minus S tilde S conjugate minus S tilde conjugate plus S tilde norm minus S tilde S conjugate minus S tilde conjugate. That's all. So that can be written in terms of. So finally I will arrive at argmin of S. Argmin of S. It will be written in terms of separating and reducing this will give me K into S square plus S tilde minus S square minus S tilde square minus S square. So what does it mean? S cap is equal to argmin of S into K minus 1 S square plus S tilde minus S. So you can still reduce this. You can still reduce and you can write a complex MRRC equation. Similarly, from this complex MRRC, first I'll write it for MRRC, the ML equation. S cap is equal to argmin of S into summation I is equal to 1 to, let's say, NR receive antennas I have. Instead of K, I will write this, okay? Hi square minus 1, okay, into symbol that is radiated plus the S tilde minus S square. This is my MRRC equation using ML. Similarly, Alamoti you can write. Alamoti, if you are writing I is equal to 1 to NR with that term, with this term, if you have J equal to I you have used, so summation J equal to here if you write summation J is equal to 1 to 2 for a 2 cross 2, okay, everything would remain the same here, okay. S1 square here, S tilde square instead of S, okay, I'll write, instead of complicating things, I'll write Alamoti. How do you detect Alamoti in case of Alamoti? Alamoti scheme, in case of Alamoti scheme, first I have to estimate S1, that becomes S1 tilde. So S1 tilde, how do you detect this? This becomes S1 cap, that is argmin given S1 was radiated at time interval T1, summation I is equal to 1 to NR summation J equal to 1 to 2 Hij 2 time slots. You have to remember that 2 time slots. Okay, this is the only thing which gets added over here. Okay, and what do I get? I get S1 square only plus what do I get over here? S1 tilde minus S1 mod square only. Okay, similarly S2 cap, you replace everything with S2 here. So these are all the two combining and detecting rules that we will be using for Alamoti scheme. Now this is for 2 cross 1, 2 cross 2, whatever.
So,
yeah.
So in the first equation, shouldn't be K square minus 1?
K square, yeah, K square minus 1. Yeah, you're right. That is K, one second, wait, K square S square, K square S square. Let me go back and check. It should be. I'll check once. Yeah, K square term will come argument Ks conjugate and Kss conjugate, K square S square. Yeah. K square term. Yes, you're right. K square minus 1. Here you write it as K square minus 1. Yeah, correct. So from these two, what we have understood is, so in ML decoding for MRRC receiver, you have no 2 time slots, but you have 2 receivers and more than 2 receivers. So what happens in that case? You have array gain as well as diversity gain, and that is shown with a combiner itself and with the gamma, that is your SNR. The degrees of freedom will be 2. So directivity, or so you can call it as degrees of freedom, that is your to the power of NR or to the power of 2 will come. So you have 2 degrees of freedom. So what can be understood from that is, because 2 receiver, you have array gain and directivity gain will have 2. So, but in case of our Alamoti coding, you have array gain of 1 and you have degrees of freedom, which is 2. So you will have 2 degrees of freedom, and directivity would remain the same. And so what it shows is, from both your MRRC as well as from MRRC and from Alamoti scheme, performance deterioration is happening in case of ML, in case of your Alamoti scheme, but that performance is compensated with the reduction in computational complexity, or the reduction in using CSIT. That is the thing. Okay. So after this ML, what I want is, in case of an Alamoti receiver, if I have something like 2 cross 1 or 2 cross 2 or whatever it is, so what is that beam forming comes into picture, and what is that projection comes into picture? Is there any orthogonality exists between the codes which you have transmitted, and how are you going to detect it? That is why I had given you a simple problem on y is equal to 2 plus j and 1 minus 2j x1 x2. So let me revisit that problem, and we will try to estimate how exactly it looks like. Okay, generic standard problem. Okay, 2 plus j and 1 minus 2j. Okay, this is S1 and this is S2 plus my noise component. So what is H1? Alamoti scheme, if you are talking about Alamoti. Okay. Now H1 is what? H1 is equal to 2 plus j. H2 is equal to what? 1 minus 2j. Okay. First transmit period, what happens? If I want to understand what is y1 will be written in terms of 2 plus j and 1 minus 2j into S1 and S2 plus Z1. Okay. Now in the second transmit, y2 will be somewhere like this, that is 2 plus j and 1 minus 2j. I will write, how have I taken? That is S1, S2 have transmitted, and minus S2 conjugate I might have taken, and S1 conjugate I have taken. Okay. Plus Z2. So Y2 is equal to what? Y2 will be minus of 2 plus j, into S2 conjugate plus 1 minus 2j into S1 conjugate plus Z2. Correct? Now y1, y2 I have to get. Let's make it as y2 conjugate, because it will be easy for me to detect in terms of y1 and y2 conjugate. So if I write y2 as y2 conjugate, that will be equal to minus of 2 minus j into S2 plus 1 minus 2j I had, conjugate is 1 plus 2j into S1 plus N2 I had, sorry, Z2 conjugate. Yeah. Now what is happening here? If I write y1 and y2 conjugate, that will be equal to two code vectors, that is 2 plus j 1 minus 2j 1 plus 2j and minus 2 plus j. This is S2, this is S1. So here I am writing it as S1, S2. So be careful while you are organizing things. Okay, this is S1 and S2 plus what I have is Z1 and Z2 conjugate. Okay. So what is my code word 1? If I divide this, C1 would be equal to 2 plus j, and that is from 1 that is from y1 and y2. And what is my code word C2? That is equal to 1 minus 2j and minus 2 plus j. So if you take Hermitian, C1 Hermitian, that is complex conjugate, that is what happens? That becomes 2 minus j, 1 minus 2j, correct? Now C1 Hermitian into C2 will give me orthogonal STVC. So hence you can prove this STVC, space-time block code, as orthogonal. Okay. If it does not give you 0 value, then it is not orthogonal. That's all. It is not orthogonal. So orthogonality of the columns at the receiver, what it makes? It makes the decoding operation very easy. Easier decoding operation. That's all. So to decode S1, from this to decode S1, what you have to do? From this to decode S2, what you have to do? To decode S1, what you have to do is, see, in our first beginning classes, we were saying something like this. Let's say C1 bar Hermitian divided by norm of C1. Okay. Since C1 and C2 are orthogonal, C1 and C2 projecting or beam forming along this axis. Okay. Beam forming. To maximize the symbol that is radiated to a particular extent. Why are we doing this? We are doing this to remove the interference created by S2. So if you don't beamform it properly, what happens is, because of the channel correlation or noise correlation, what happens? The S2, if it is non-orthogonal, then becomes an interference. If it is orthogonal, obviously S2, while transmitting S1, S2's interference will be limited, or it will be 0. While transmitting S2, the S1's interference will be limited. So similarly, to decode S1, what you have to do is, to decode S1, that is C1, you write it properly, C1 bar is equal to, C1 bar is 2 plus j, 1 plus 2j. Okay. C2 is 1 minus 2j minus 2. Okay, fine. Now C1 Hermitian divided by norm of C1 into y. That is C1 bar I have, that is equal to 2 plus j, 1 plus 2j. Okay. Norm, if I calculate, that will be square root of 2 plus j square plus 1 plus 2j square. So C1 bar norm is equal to square root of 10. 4 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2. Similarly, what does it mean? That is equal to 1 by root 10 of the symbol, that is 2 plus j into 1 minus 2j. 2 plus j into 1 minus 2j into whatever I have received, I1 by 2 conjugate. This is how you extract x1. So if you multiply this becomes equal to this. To extract s1, this is equal to 1 by root 10 2 minus j 2 minus j, 2 plus j, okay, 2 plus j into y1 plus 1 by root 10 1 minus 2j to y2 conjugate. Similarly, to extract s2, what do I have? 1 by root 10 1 plus 2j y1 minus 1 by root 10 2 plus j y2 conjugate. That's all. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? I have given some symbols or some 2 cross 2 elements. That is, my symbols are like 2 plus j and 1 minus 2j, s1, s2. And in order to find s2, what are all the difficulties we have faced? Now we have to understand what are all the channel gains and what are all the noise components of it. What happens if we multiply that, y is equal to hs plus n or hx plus n? What happens? And then finding the norm, you will get some to extract or to identify what is the symbol that s1 has been radiated. You have to do that. 1 by root 10 into 2 minus j y1 plus 1 by root 10 into 2 plus j into y1 plus 1 by root 10 into 1 minus 2j into y2 conjugate. So y1, y2 will be known. y1, y2 will be known to you because you will be calculating that y1, y2, the received vector. So everything will be out here. So what have you understood from this? You have understood if two symbols are given, means if y is given like in terms of hx plus n or hs plus n, you know how to identify s1 and s2, the symbols that has been radiated. A simple analogy is this ML technique is find an argument minimum s belongs to s to the power of m, norm of y minus hs square. That's nothing but finding the Frobenius norm or L2 norm. So the decoding complexity becomes increasingly high and increasingly difficult in case of our maximum likelihood because of so many factors. Those so many factors are something like this: increasing the number of constellation orders from m is equal to 4 to let's say 1024 QAM or 2048 QAM or something like that. Then also brute force. It'll take a lot of time for iteration. If you increase the number of transmit antennas from let's say 4 or 2 or 4 to say something like 128 as a massive MIMO case, then also this ML detection criteria takes a lot of input and calculations, so that even for my 4x4 system with 16 QAM, if you go for a Monte Carlo simulation, it took nearly 70 hours to calculate everything in your MATLAB with 16 GB RAM. Okay, you don't be under an impression that it will be very easy. Okay, you will get a waterfall curve after somewhere around 70 hours. If something goes wrong before 70 hours, no, again you have to redo it. So that iteration will take a lot of time first. So if you run it for say something like 100 iterations or 1000 iterations, then your ML, even if you optimally reduce the computational complexity, better than this you cannot go. There is one more sphere decoding approach is there. Sphere decoding approach. It will start with the sphere of radius something very small, and it will try to identify the minimum distance, and then increase the radius of the sphere. It will identify the minimum distance. This will reduce the computational complexity, yet by giving the ML performance one. This reduces the search space, because if the point somewhere lies here, that could be the point. Okay. Similarly, the same methodology is used as and when the radius becomes increasingly complicated, then ML becomes very complicated. So sphere decoding approach can also be used to reduce the computational complexity. Approximately 30% computational complexity can be reduced. Okay, not by many orders. Okay, and if you use MMSE criteria, approximately some 40 to 42%. That's what I have come across. Okay, MMSE 40 to 40% is not a joke. 42% is it's very good. But here you will not lose any performance. This is maximum limit 30%. Okay, this is maximum limit 42%. So here you will lose somewhere around 1.5 dB to approximately 2 dB. So this sums up the Alamotti criteria of ML detection criteria for MRRC and Alamotti. So noise you have seen, variance of the noise, that is expectation of n tilde square you have seen. Similarly, if I write it in terms of C1 Hermitian by C1 norm, if you write it, that is a kind of beam forming, that is also called as it is projecting along a single direction of C1, so that you will have maximum availability. So that is one thing. Next, we will move upon the same discussion we will carry for MIMO system. For a MIMO system. Though we have discussed MIMO already, I have not declared what is a MIMO system properly. We will talk about ML we have discussed for a MIMO system, but we have not yet defined what is that MIMO comes into picture. What are all the different gains that MIMO will give us that we have not discussed. First thing, covariance, real valued covariance and cross covariance matrix you have to understand. If I talk about MIMO, first thing is Z is equal to X plus IY. Everything is complex. X and Y are real valued random vectors of size n. Okay. Now, real valued covariance, if you want to talk about the covariance matrix, C of X should be written as expectation of X minus expectation of X into X minus expectation of X transpose. Similarly, Cy you can write, instead of X, replace it with Y. What is that cross covariance? Cross covariance is Cxy. Cxy is expectation of X minus E X will remain as it is into Y minus expectation of Y transpose. Okay. Similarly, Cyx expectation. Why am I writing this? Why am I writing all these things? X minus expectation of X transpose. See, matrix Cx and Cy are the vector covariance matrices. Okay, matrices of real random vectors X and Y. They are assumed symmetric and non-negative definite. So if I write cross covariance, that is Cxy and Cyx, Cyx will be C transpose Xy, Cxy is equal to C transpose Yx. So vector correlation matrix Rx is defined as expectation of X into X transpose if it is real, X into X Hermitian if it is complex. Expectation of this. Why it is required? This is required because I am transmitting from first antenna one symbol, that is S1, and I am transmitting some symbol S2 from the second antenna. Assumed uncorrelatedness, assuming uncorrelatedness. Now let's say 0, 0 has transmitted from first antenna, 1, 1 has been transmitted from second antenna. And let's assume that has been detected also properly at two receiving antennas. Let's say S1 cap and S2 cap I have detected. Now what it has done, with a single time slot T1, instead of transmitting the same piece of information, I could also transmit different piece of information. This is called spatially multiplexing or spatial multiplexing. Now here you can obtain array gain because you have two transmit, two receive antennas. At the same time, you have two transmit antennas with which one transmit antenna is transmitting one information, the other transmit antenna is transmitting other information. What have we done with Alamoti scheme here? Alamoti S1, S2 has been transmitted, but at a different symbol in the next time slot, you have transmitted the complex conjugate of other. No, we are not doing that. It's simply we are transmitting. So what happens here? This is my S1 and this is my reflected wave at the receiver 2. Now this is my reflected wave at receiver 1 and this is my LOS component. I'll write it like this. So what is happening? So I have a two-way communication. Now the combining here is both a time t1 what is happening from transmitter 1, this is NT1, okay, plus NT2 at time t1 only. What is happening at the receiver 2? This is at receiver 1. I will write it at receiver 2. What is happening? This is NT2 plus NT1. Okay, both symbols are transmitted. This will give you a multiplexing gain. That is nothing but your power gain. That is nothing but your, it is also termed as your gain. That is the array gain. Okay. Now, carefully observe here. Here, instead of transmitting same piece of information, that I have transmitted two different pieces of information so that I can multiplex and transmit. If you argue it in terms of what happens here, what happens here? If you argue it in terms of, suppose if this goes for a deep fade, gone, nothing can be done, gone, that's all. So in indoor communication, what we do is 0, 0 is transmitted, again 0, 0 is transmitted from the second antenna to maintain the reliability of the link. Here we are not concerned about the reliability of the link, but we have also considered two different symbols or another different symbol that has been transmitted from this point, from the second transmit antenna. Now, is it possible for me to beamform over here? It is possible for me to beamform because you can rotate the antenna in such a way that you can major lobe characteristics of the antenna can be tuned in such a way that S1 is properly receiving the symbol 1 or the receiver 1 is properly receiving the symbol from transmitter antenna 1. That is one way of looking at the situation. That is C1 Hermitian divided by C1 norm, whatever I have written. That is the projection, projecting in terms of C1 Hermitian by C1. It is possible to remove the interference created by this S2 so that I project this completely towards this. Suppose what if there is noise, extensive noise, then gone, that's all, nothing can be done. But this is another way of improving the efficiency. What is that efficiency? That efficiency is called spectral efficiency. Spectral efficiency. What does it mean? It means spectral efficiency is nothing but it is defined for a specific frequency. It is defined for a specific channel usage. What is the number of bits? What are the number of bits transmitted per second for a defined bandwidth? Okay, bits per second per hertz. If I say something like 5 bits per second per hertz, it is not the data rate. It is not the data rate. Don't get confused with the data rate. 5 bits per second means for a particular frequency that has accommodated, for a particular channel that is accommodated, 5 bits per second per hertz or 5 bits per second has been transmitted. How do you calculate the spectral efficiency? It is nothing but constellation points. That is, what are all the constellation points? QAM or QPSK, and how many number of transmit antennas you have. Now, a rudimentary approach is something like this. Eta, it is referred to as spectral efficiency. Now, NT into log 2M. This is for your spatial multiplexing scheme. NT into log 2M. Into is because both antennas are active. This is also active, this is also active. So how many antennas you have? 2 antennas. 2 into, suppose if I use, let's say, 4 quad or QPSK into log 2 of 4. This will give me 2 bits. This will give me 2 bits. So 4 BPCU or bits per second per hertz. Bits per second per hertz means for a specific region, for a specific transmitter receiver combination allotted with a specific bandwidth, you have 4 bits per second per hertz. And usually in our 4G or 5G, if you concentrate a cell, it will be approximately about of the order, if you are working for a multi-user MIMO stuff, if you are working for a multi-user 10 bits per second per hertz, 10 bits per second per hertz for an approximate distance of 1.5 to 2.5 kilometers would give you somewhere around 10 Mbps. 10 Mbps. Look at this. Approximately for a distance of 1.5 kilometers, this is approximate. There is another way of calculating approximately 8 to 10 Mbps. See, the downloading rate doesn't depend on the spectral efficiency. Okay, those two are absolutely different. Now, what I'm telling you is this: in order to calculate this data rate, you need a lot of calculations that we are not doing here. But for a specific cell of radius, say, let's say 1.5 to 2 kilometers or 2.5, maximum up to 2.5 kilometers, if the base station is applying a MU-MIMO, multi-user MIMO configuration, and if it is producing something like this spatial multiplexing kind of stuff with, let's say, 10 bits per second per hertz or 10 BPC, it is also called 10 bits per channel usage for a dedicated channel. What is the usage? 10 bits that has been transmitted. It is interchangeably, you can use 10 bits per second per hertz or 10 BPCU. So if you are getting somewhere around 10 BPCU, then what does it mean? It means approximately 8 to 10 Mbps data rate you can achieve. Okay. Now this is first point. First point has to be clear. If you are multiplexing, you are using two different characteristics or two different symbols from two active antennas. How are you calculating that? By means of spectral efficiency. What is spectral efficiency? Spectral efficiency is nothing but eta, that is how many number of antennas which are active. Okay, what is the constellation order that you have used here? That's how you get spectral efficiency. Okay, this is one way of generating higher spectral efficiency, isn't it, sir? Now this is 1 cross 1. If you have 1 cross 1, if you want to use, let's say 4 BPCU if you want to use with this only, you have to send 4 bits of information. Okay? Now, if I have 2 antennas, you can divide those two with the equal power distribution across the 2 antennas and transmit the same piece of information. If you want a reliability, divide the 2 into 0, 0, 0, 0, you will get reliability. There are different ways of doing all these things. Okay. And one more thing is, what happens if you do all these things? I'll go back to Alamoti to give an example. Now, if you do that beam forming in case of a 2 cross 1 Alamoti, that is your, how do you write SNR? SNR only I'll write, because SNR of Alamoti, if you write SNR of Alamoti is what I'll write directly. SNR, how do you write SNR? Norm of H. Okay, norm of H into power that is transmitted ES, okay, by 2 sigma square, okay, 2 sigma z square. Okay, this equation you have seen, that is, it is divided by 2 because of 2 different slots. So BER at high SNR, if you want to write for BER at high SNR, if you want to write, that will be something like 3 divided by SNR square. SNR square. You have to remember this 3 BER. Average bit error rate for a Alamoti scheme 2 cross 1. It is 3 by SNR square. How do you get 3 by SNR square? It is pretty simple. Now, how many number of, let's say you have L number of branches, it will be written as 2L minus 1 choose L into 1 minus 1 by 2 into 1 by 2 SNR whole to the power of L. So if you keep L is equal to 2, So you will get 3C2 into 1 by SNR. That's all. 3C2 into 1 by SNR square. So that's how you get BER versus SNR. Now with this BER versus SNR, if you calculate the ABER, if you calculate for a given SNR, for a given SNR, let's say 10 dB, you will have ABER of approximately, let's say, if you can calculate that for a, let's say that 3 by SNR, 10 log 10 SNR will be equal to 10. Okay, 10 log SNR will be equal to 10 log 10 SNR will be equal to 10, and SNR will be equal to 10 into 10 to the power of 1. So ABER is equal to 3 by SNR square, that is equal to 10 to the power of 1 whole square, that is 10 square, that is 3 divided by 10 to the power of 2, that is somewhere around that 3 into 10 to the power of minus 2 probably. Okay, for a given SNR, Alamotti gives you a bit error rate of 10 to the 3 into 10 to the power of minus 2. You can verify, you can change the SNR value and verify somewhere for a different.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
What modulation scheme are we using for this?
Irrespective of whatever modulation scheme you use here, generally it is considered as QPSK, generally, okay, or BPSK for your Alamotti scheme. Okay, generally, if you have something like 3 by SNR square or something like that, for a 2 cross 1 Alamotti, if you see anywhere here 2 cross 1 or 2 cross 2, you straight away without any hesitation you consider BPSK, as simple as that, because only two symbols are there, no? S1 and S2. On the right hand side you have S1, on the left hand side you have S2. If you write BPSK, it will be 0 or 1, 0 or 1, or minus 1 or plus 1, or whatever symbol. This is S1 and S2 complemented with 180 phase shift. So generally BPSK you can consider for a 2 cross 2 system. Now, very good question actually. Now if you go for QPSK, then you have to slightly alter this, because 2 cross 2 means you are pushing 2 bits like this, 2 bits like this from one antenna, 2 bits like this from another antenna. So it will be QPSK in terms of, so you will get what? You will get 2 bits of information from first transmit antenna, 2 bits of information from second transmit antenna. At the same time, in time interval 2, you have to maintain that minus S2 conjugate and S1 conjugate in order to have that orthogonality. If you don't produce orthogonality between the symbols, then what happens is, if you are not properly beamforming it, what happens is, let's say it has become non-orthogonal, then the S2 symbol will interfere with S1 symbol, and the detection becomes slightly complicated, and you may get errors also. So assuming that everything is there, so you will get a BER equal to 3 by SNR square. So now this cannot be generalized. This is for 2 cross 1 system. Whatever I have written here would work. If you go for a 2 cross NR system, for a 2 cross 2 MIMO system, and 2 cross 4 or 2 cross 8 system, then there is some formula. It is calculated in terms of 4 NR minus 1 choose 2 NR, and 1 by 2 SNR to the power of this to the power of 2 NR. I hope this will work out. I hope this should work out, because no textbooks will give you this. This is, I think, one textbook by name, Coding for MIMO by what's his name? Coding for MIMO. But the book name is Coding for MIMO, and I don't remember the author's name as of now. In that book, I think he has discussed this kind of concepts like if you are increasing the number of antennas from 2 cross 1 to 2 cross 2, the BER will be ABR for a given SNR can be calculated, and this is supposed to work actually. This is 99.99% of the times this will work. I don't know whether 100% it will work or not, but this is the closed form BER. You can get 4NR minus 1 choose 2NR into 1 by 2 SNR whole to the power of 2NR. Tolga Duman. This book's name is Tolga Duman. He is a very great man in coding wireless communication for coding for MIMO systems. His name is Tolga Duman. I think you can refer that. In that he has given, I think this is the similar equation. Okay. So why am I discussing all these things? Because I have to compare it with MIMO systems here. Now, if I talk about the same BER versus SNR for the 1 cross 2 or 1 cross, let's say 1 cross 4 MRRC, I will compare, and 2 cross 2 LMOT I have to compare, and a 2 cross 2 simple MIMO system I will compare, simple MIMO. Okay. Now here, if I write this 1 cross 4 MRRC, it will be better somewhere here. And LMOT, this is my LMOT. Somewhere here, this has a 2.5 to 3 dB worst performance. Let's say this is 14 dB and this could be 17 dB. My SMX or spatial multiplexing scheme will give a performance improvement somewhere here. I will choose another color over here. Somewhere here. Now you can argue what is this performance deterioration is happening and why are you saying that the performance improvement is happening? Improvement is happening in terms of bits that are transmitted, in terms of spectral efficiency. For a 1 cross 4, what is the spectral efficiency? Maximum you can push it 2 bits here. Here I am sending 2 bits, means instead of, suppose if I'm getting somewhere around, in case of this MRRC, let's say I'm getting somewhere around 2 BPCU and 2 BPCU, I'll get the same performance at 4 BPCU. That's why approximately if you get the same performance for 4 BPCU here, obviously this MRRC will shift out here, shift to somewhere here. So spatial multiplexing scheme is a scheme wherein 2 transmit antennas and 2 receive antennas are used or activated together. At the same time, 2 different pieces of information are transmitted continuously. There are no time slots. Okay. And with the assumption that CSIR is only required. CSIR is assumed. CSIT is not assumed. Why? Because I am not concerned about the complexity at the transmitter, because I have somewhere around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just to improve this, just to improve the spectral efficiency, I am not considering the complexity at the transmitter by implanting another CSIT. I am transmitting with CSIR. I assume that CSIR, I will go with the combination of the ML decoder or any suboptimal decoder. I will simply transmit. Is there any lacuna? Is there any difficulty here? Yes, we do have difficulty if you don't have CSIT and if you're simply transmitting some information at your end. There is a chance if the channel goes for a bad state, if the channel goes for a toss here, you will definitely lose information, and that information cannot be retrieved. That cannot be detected properly. For that, SMX schemes have another advantage. For that, they will have CSIR and they will have coding installed. What does it mean? At the transmitter, I will have a coding mechanism. Okay, let's say I'll explain. Just I'll write some code here. RS code. So if I talk about this RS encoder here, I should have a RS decoder over here. RS decoder over here. I am making this computationally complex. The receiver I'm making computationally complex, but still without CSIT I'm achieving this. Without CSIT I'm achieving this. Fantastic. This will work out. Now let's go back to why this RS. Now what do I have now for full duplex communication? This will not work out. For full duplex communication you should have CSIT, at least partial CSIT and a complete CSIR, and you should have proper synchronization. This is very important. These three aspects you have to remember. Okay, some 1.5 mark question or 1 mark question could be asked for full duplex communication, like your mobile communication scenario, like 2x2. Your mobile acts as your mobile, now you have considered it as a receiver, but it acts as a transmitter also, right? It's a transceiver unit. Similarly, this base station is just transmitting and receiving, Now for full duplex communication, what happens is partial CSIT is assumed and a complete CSIR is assumed and a synchronization is assumed. Means everything is assumed. 2x2. This knows CSIR. This has synchronization, means it can effectively communicate what is happening at the receiver end, so that it will come to know everything at the transmitter. At least partial CSIT is assumed so that you can vary the gains at the transmitter itself. So that's why you are using some kind of coding over here so that you will get a better performance. Have you ever identified the handover that takes place in your mobile while you are traveling? No, you cannot identify, because that happens with your network switching and network giving directions to your mobile with the help of a mobile assisted handoff. Mobile assisted handoff is nothing but network will only take control by instantiating or initiating. There is signal strength which is getting dropped, and then it will ask your nearest neighboring base station to have a channel which is available at this. Suppose if your mobile is transferred something like moving from part A to part B, somewhere here, your base station, what it does is while it is moving, it will have a mobile assisted handoff. Whenever your mobile enters this region, automatically the free available channels which are there in the next nearest cell or the base station, automatically it will transfer. You will not notice that. Now for that, what are all the things you need? You need at least a partial channel state information at the transmitter, a complete channel state information at the receiver, and synchronization. Synchronization means mobile should be in a position to communicate to the base station, that is your home location transmitting station, so that network will communicate it to the next network, so that whenever your mobile enters the next cell, automatically your base station will initiate a handoff from this cell to another cell. This is the concept. Now let's get back to how the spatial multiplexing will take over. Now this, I have told you, this uses a RS code or a BCH code or a turbo code or even a simple Hamming code, or let's say LDPC code or a simple Hamming code. This is 1-bit error correction. 1-bit error correction. Here you can design whatever number of bit you want. Based on that, you can go up to 93-bit error correction, 100-bit error correction for 10 million symbols that has radiated, even turbo for that matter. BCH and RS is nothing but Reed-Solomon codes designed in 1959-1960 by Reed and Solomon. Okay, this RS code is used for burst error correction. correction. Note down all these things because they may ask in the exam. VCH is random error correction. Random error correction. Okay, this is also, these two are also random error correction codes. Turbo and LDPC are random error correction codes. Okay, this can even correct, but if you want a burst error correcting code, you should know what is burst error first. Burst error is nothing but let's say you have something like you are transmitting piece of information. Okay, let's say you have a receiver, it receives. Now in between, assume you have one interfering device. Let's say in an indoor, let's say this is my indoor. I have a fan, let's say I have a fan over here, which disturbs every 1 second. Every second it disturbs. Means I have an iron rod or something like that, okay, which comes in between the radio wave after every 1 second. That is the burst error. Random error, you don't know why this random error comes into picture. Burst errors can be random with unequal amount of delays, but random errors are completely random. You never expect what is going to happen next. So that is because of noise, that is because of interference, that is because of interference, that is because of noise. So usually if you want to go with like satellite communication, in satellite communication RS codes are used. Why in satellite communication RS codes are used? Out of this when you go out of the atmosphere, what happens is there are a lot of burst errors which comes from different sources because of moving comets, or because of the reflections from other satellites or something like that. So this burst error correction phenomenon is used because of so many disadvantages. In case of random errors, BCH code, 3-bit error correcting, 6-bit error correcting, so many BCH error correction. Bose-Chaudhary Hockingham code. Turbo code is just a turbo, that's a convolution code. LDPC is a low density parity check code. Hamming code is a 1-bit error correction code. Now, why am I telling you all these things is, in spatial multiplexing, at the transmitter itself, it has a coding mechanism, it has an encoding mechanism. When you have an encoding mechanism, even if you have a partial CSIT availability at the transmitter end, still you can transfer information with the highest reliability. That is because of the code construction, the code structure. There are codes which will give you 100-bit error correction by using turbo and LDPC. Means you are increasing the number of bits n comma k that you will be studying in your error correction coding. If you have studied error correction coding, then you might have understood the fact. But how do you incorporate all those things to wireless communication? That is important. Now, RS code, and is there a combination of RS and BCH? Yes, there is a combination of RS and BCH code where outer code could be a RS code and inner code could be a BCH code. But as and when you implement all these things, the detector or the receiver computational complexity is too high. But if you take your mobile, you have a simple error correction code. It uses some turbo or LDPC code. Definitely not LDPC, if not LDPC in our every handset, but it uses turbo code. There is one advantage of this turbo code because dynamically rate changing is possible in case of this convolution turbo code. Now, suppose if you are transmitting, let's say, data at a rate of, let's say 2/3 rate code. If you want to decrease that to 1/2, or from 1/2 rate to 2/3, if you want to increase, 1/2 is 0.5, this 2/3 is somewhere around 0.6, whatever. Okay, now if you want to increase this, suppose if you want to have a rate of say 0.9, see, dynamically it is possible to change the rate even while you are broadcasting something, but that won't happen in case of our LDPC codes. But LDPC codes are enormously very well designed by Robert Gallagher in 1961. But implementation issue started in the year 1991. But there were codes but used for information theory, but for wireless communication, both turbo and LDPC came into picture in 91 to 95, somewhere around 91 to 95, where most of the Richard Hamming and his students who worked on Hamming codes and the implementation issues for those things in their work. So Gallagher's LDPC codes will give you a better improvement over any other code. Similarly, turbo codes are little complex compared to LDPC, but it will give you the same performance of the LDPC codes. Now, this point is pretty clear here. If you are going for a spatial multiplexing scheme, till 4G, the spatial multiplexing scheme, okay, the spatial multiplexing scheme in an uncorrelated environment where you have a non-line of sight communication path, where you have a dominant non-line of sight communication path, even 16 QAM with 2x2 in our handheld devices, spatial multiplexing was carried out just to improve the spectral efficiency. Now, a lot of things we have discussed so far today, so just we'll try to revise once, and I'll take the next geometrical interpretation of why it has to be done like this. So ML detection we have seen. So what is that argument max and argument mean? How do you convert that? A simple example we have seen. So if you calculate the norm in terms of y minus hs Frobenius norm square, you will have something like this. So MRRC and maximum likelihood demodulation, this I will not ask, okay? Don't worry about this. This I will not ask for you to solve or something like that. If I don't give this idea, and there is no point in solving this problem, okay? So that's why I have given you this idea. I will not ask, okay? This I will not ask in the exam, okay? I will ask till maximum likelihood, okay? Till maximum likelihood, even in the final exam, okay? Till maximum likelihood, no ML detection, not required, not important, okay? For example, like, okay? Now, but if you don't understand this, there is no significance of studying this wireless communication. So this is Rayleigh random variable with Gaussian normal and normal distributed, okay? So how do you find this? And problem I will ask, because problem is easy to solve. So problem even with ML I will ask, but not the mathematical part of it. Just remember this equation: BR is equal to 3 by SNR square for 2x1. And I think this is correct. I'll verify once from Tolga Duman's book. 4NR minus 1 choose 2NR into 1 by 2 SNR whole to the power of 2 NR for 2x2 mimosis. This should work actually. I'll verify once, but you can take this equation, okay? Then MIMO, though we have not technically defined what is that MIMO, but physical interpretation of MIMO that I have given. In order to increase the spectral efficiency, in order to improve the data rate, in order to have higher data rates, I have gone on from single input, single output system to multi-input, multi-output system. So MRRC is something like single input, multi-output. 2x1 Alamoti is something like multi-input, single output system. So without most essential part that we had discussed, the 2x2 everything, but assuming channel state information, partial CSI IT available at the transmitter and complete CSIR is available at the receiver. At the same time, you have to assume that channel is uncorrelated. For a correlated scenario, there is another work, okay? But for this, now you assume this, okay? Why we have gone for spatial multiplexing scheme is the spatial multiplexing scheme will give me diversity gain and the multiplexing gain or the array gain, so that I can transmit two different pieces of information. If they are not orthogonal, then it would be very difficult for us to have, if the symbols are not orthogonal, then the detection process will have some intruders, means S1, S2 is those intrusion of S2 into S1 and S1 in S2 might happen. So orthogonality has to be maintained. Not a lot of orthogonality can be maintained all the time, but that can be one of the processes. And after that, SMX also instantiates coding. These are all Reed-Solomon codes, Bose-Chaudhary-Huckingham codes, and turbo codes. This is the convolution code, and low density parity check codes and Hamming codes. Most well-known codes. Those codes were used in the 4G and LTE era. Okay. Now, there is something called as a polar code. Polar code. Actually, polar code is not an error correction code, but the design is in such a way that the implications of polar code will give you a better performance because of the what you call its inherent construction, I should say. So polar code is also an error correction code. That is how it is defined. There is another way of expressing polar code. If you know digital communication properly, the Erdal Arikan has first given the idea of polar codes in 2008. So that will be used for our 5G and beyond 5G wireless communication systems. Okay, the combination of LDPC with polar codes will give you a wonderful improvement even in case of correlated environments. There are a lot of issues with it. So why have we discussed all these things? See, first thing, the discussion started with Alamoti and MRRC, where MRRC will be giving you a better performance in terms of ABER. But why am I going for Alamoti? Alamoti because it is simpler implementation. Now, after Alamoti, what we have discussed is the multiplexing. Now, Alamoti, we know when once you understand the LMOT, the receiver computational complexity is in the order 3, not even 4, 5 and all, order 3, maximum thousands, that's all. The order means the computational complexity is so less because of its construction, because of orthogonality between the codes that you have radiated. Now, we are not satisfied with Alamoti because even if you use Alamoti in our 4G communication systems, sometimes if you want to have a better throughput, better spectral efficiency, and the better data rate, without Alamoti, spatial multiplexing scheme can be used. One chip will does all these things for you. One chip will instantiate all these things for you. Okay, forget about MRRC. MRRC is nothing. Okay, LMOT and SMX means continuously. If you have, let's assume your mobile has 4x4 MIMO antennas which are working in the same moment. If you don't have, let's assume. Okay, the data rate. Okay, you may even appreciate this. Now you have, let's say, two Wi-Fi frequencies, one at 2.4 gigahertz, a single band and a multi-band. What does it mean? It means you're enhancing the frequency from 2.4 gigahertz to 5.2 gigahertz or 5.1 gigahertz in order to do what? In order to extend the range, one thing, and the other thing is in order to improve the data rate, isn't it so? You have used in your mobiles only, you have used while connecting at 2.4 gigahertz. It is not the lesser frequency, lesser bandwidth, and lesser power and lesser data rate. It's not like that. But the 2.4 gigahertz, what has been applied to your mobile device is in the same fashion, that improve the frequency, improve the reliability, improve the data rate, so that you will have more number of receivers. You will have more number of receivers which are activated in your mobile device, so that it will have the improved connectivity, improved reliability. Codes, generally codes, the RS code, BCH code, turbo code, LDPC codes, or whatever codes that you are going to implement, polar code even for that matter, improves the reliability of communication. It extends the distance, the reliability of communication from, let's say, if you have indoor area, let's say 15 meters or 20 meters, it will improve the reliability, improve the distance of coverage to, let's say, 35 meters or 40 meters, depending on what kind of analogy and what kind of indoor communication you have. And you've heard of giga routers. What does it do? It will install one more antenna, and it is transmitting same piece of information, improving the reliability. At the same time, dedicated antennas, if you have dedicated antennas, and if you are achieving the array gain also with that, if you are able to achieve the array gain, then diversity gain with the improved number of antennas and array gain, that is the multiplexing gain, if you have achieved, then it's wonderful. Actually means you have more number of branches, you have more number of degrees of freedom, hence you have higher data rate. So MRRC, Alamoti scheme, and SMX, that's what we have discussed. And the last component of today's discussion would be on why MIMO and why multi-user MIMO. So in order to explain that why MIMO and why multi-user MIMO, you have to understand some basic concepts of how this MIMO react. What is the correlation covariance matrix and how the joint Gaussian distributions and uncorrelatedness will work. So what is effectively what the data rate in uncorrelated channels in a relay for most of the MIMO analysis. You can extend that to Nakagami, Rice, N mu, K mu, alpha mu channels, but how do you expect that? How do you make sure that the channel gain coefficients of signal which are transmitted using the different transmitting antennas will give you the uncorrelatedness, and how are you going to detect that? So that you need to understand, but for that little bit of mathematics and analytical MIMO model equations have to be written and understood. So now I'll not do that, but I'll give you a physical interpretation of what it is and how are you going to improve the capacity on that? How are you going to improve what do you call how are you going to involve many number of users, and so on and so forth. Now let's consider 1x4 MRRC in a realistic sense. I have one mobile device here, let's say M1. Okay, I have another mobile device here, let's say M2. I have another mobile device M3 and M4. Now, if you use MRRC, what is the problem you understand here? Now, if you are using MRRC, you have channel metrics will be NR cross NT because you have assumed CSIR. Okay, this is my transmitting antenna. These are my receiving antennas. You have 4 branches. What does it mean? It means in my mobile device, I have 4 receivers here. 1, 2, 3, 4 receivers. Here I have 4 receivers. Here I have 4 receivers. Here I have 4 receivers. Now, you understand one thing here. One base station is doing all this business. I have only one transmitting antenna. This is doing all kinds of transmission, what is happening. Okay. Hence, the channel is NR cross NT from this end to this end. Okay. Now, is it possible for me to have a multi-user communication with this? At the same time, if M3 wants to have a communication through this network to M4, it becomes difficult, isn't it? One transmit antenna, it is dedicated and it is transmitting a piece of information. Now with this 1x4 MRRC, multi-user concept is not possible. Now 2x1, if I go with 2x1, again H is NR cross NT, you have only one device. Let's say 2x2. You can go with Alamoti. You can go with Alamoti and you can have somewhere around 4 antennas for each mobile device. And let's say you have 2 transmitting antennas here, and you can at least you can have something like this. But the data rate is pretty low because of the facts what we had discussed earlier. The data rate is still slow. Now, if you go with SMX, what happens is, again, 0, 0, 0, 1. 2 different pieces of information you are transmitting. That is why MIMO is required. What is that multi-user MIMO? Multi-user MIMO is nothing but you will have more number of active antennas at the transmitter. You will have a sector. You will have dedicated multi-antennas at this sector. Okay, so that these antennas are dedicated towards the user, even if you have somewhere around 4 users. Let's say about in our base station, if I have somewhere around 8 antennas, the dedicated users can have this multi-user concept. One antenna itself, because it is controlled and beamformed. So these sectored and dedicated antennas can be thought of as a multi-user, multi-input, multi-output communication, so that effectively everything is connected. if you reduce the region, region of transmission and reception means if you reduce the distance, it can be thought of as IoT. As simple as that. Install many number of access points controlled by one root hub. Install many number of access points controlled by one base station. And those active points will act like a small base station and will in turn have a connectivity to many number of mobile users. Very simple implementation. There is a MIMO, multi-user MIMO. There is a massive MIMO. There is a terahertz communication. Massive MIMO is one of the promising technologies for higher bandwidth expansion and higher data rate communication. But if you are targeting for narrow band or short distance communication, NB-IoT would do that. And you will not believe, for IoT devices, for IoT chip, it will work at minus 30 dB. I'm not talking about dBm, at minus 30 dB. It's a no joke. Where is our relay? It will be around 10 dB. Where is my minus 30 dB? That is why the distance has reduced. No, not all the IoTs are not you cannot do whatever you do with your massive MIMO technology, but for a short distance communication, at least to have a connectivity, it in terms of little higher data rates compared to our previous generation schemes, NB-IoT and narrowband IoT and IoT schemes. With this SNR, it's the efforts what the engineers and researchers put is commendable. Minus 30 dB. And if you look at the Shannon's limit for a single input, single output system, if you look at the Shannon's limit, that is 1.6 dB. The capacity equation that you have seen, minus 1.6 dB. Look at minus 30 dB. How Shannon's limit has been pushed for NB-IoT. For Shannon's limit for this NB-IoT may be approximately around 46 dB that you have to calculate. Okay, minus 46 dB or something like that. Look at the available resources what we have right now. So all these will happen only because of two fundamental reasons. First reason is you are capable of transmitting from multiple antennas different pieces of information, not the same piece of information, different pieces of information. And don't be under an assumption that one will fade or one will fade away. That can be controlled via using modulation and encoding. And through proper beamforming, we will not concentrate more, but through proper beamforming, you will have this projection, direction of projection. You can still have the reception available at receiver. So if you're talking about beamforming, then antennas will come into picture, and beamforming is nothing but whatever I have written, C1 Hermitian divided by C1 norm. Okay, means projecting or directing towards the intended receiver. Similarly, apply the same concept to a number of users, directed the antennas towards one particular area. But that has its own limitation, because if you have a sectored antenna, if it is concentrated on a particular direction, and since it is not isotropic, then what happens? The gain at the other end will go for a toss. And then if you have 120 sectors, exactly 120 sectors you can concentrate, but you cannot reach the last mile coverage at the edges or at the corners of the cell. You may not be able to give the same data rate. That's what I mean. Okay, this is about the Alamo-T ML detection and the introduction to MIMO. In the next class, we will be understanding the entropy of complex multivariate Gaussian random variable, and we will be straight away going with the technological implementation of MIMO, and not a lot of math, but a little bit of mathematics, and singular value decomposition. Why singular value decomposition? And I'll give you a geometrical interpretation of the singular value decomposition. If a signal has been radiated with some symbol, how rotation and stretching operation over a vector happens, and then a matrix which rotates at every angle theta, how exactly that beamforming happens with SVD, and the projection happens with SVD, and why that singular value decomposition is required, and what is the decomposition, what is a parallel decomposition of the channel, and Some other gains, if I had missed out any, we will try to discuss everything in the next class. Please go ahead and ask any doubts if you have. Now, what are all the examination? Yeah. Now, one thing is, as most of you had discussed earlier, and for our when do you have your, let me stop recording. Okay, when do you have your this mid-sem exam? When is the wireless communication mid-sem exam?
For 13th.
13th, okay, another 10 days. Now you do one thing from my portion. What you have to do is you study selection combining and MRC. That would be fine. Okay, only selection combining and MRC you study. In selection combining, you have two varieties. No, that is a switch and stay combining, selection combining, and the examination combining. That you study, the concept you study, and the problem, whatever I had given, no, probability of error or the outage probability, probability of outage and the probability of error for selection combining. And selection combining and MRC, just only those two, if you can see, that would be fine. Okay. Let's not talk about Alamo, TML, all those things are not required. Okay. You can do that. You can do that. I think because yes, most of the CRs have messaged me saying that the syllabus is too vast and it is hard to remember. I can understand that. I can understand. Okay, sharing the slides. Would it be helpful? My slides, I don't think. I'll not make notes and all. Whatever I have understood properly, I'll write. If it is helpful, I can share all those things. Some of you have asked, can you please share the slides? If it is helpful, you definitely take it. I'll share that. I'll convert it into a PDF, and I don't know whether that is helpful or not. If you write it and practice, then only it will be helpful. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Yes. Anything? Any questions? What kind of questions you are going to get in the examination? Not for internals, not for our midterm exam. For final examination, what kind of questions that you can expect? Explain the Alamo-T scheme. Not straightforward, as straightforward as that, but design a diversity of order 2 with 2 transmit and 2 receive antennas. That could be one of the questions. Are problematic questions like how do you find the outage probability? How do you find the outage probability? Like that. And then some questions, and concentrate more on problems so that it would be easy for you to analyze the concepts very well. Okay. I would urge you to go through all those things. If not the video lectures, at least the Andrea Goldsmith whatever diversity chapter, page number 197 in my book. In your book, I don't know. Okay, if you are using a soft copy, I think it is 191, I believe 197 or 191. Just go through it. Okay. Yes, if you have any queries, go ahead, please ask. What is not understood? Generally, if the course is handled by a single faculty for individual sections, it would require, at least for me, it would require somewhere around 52 hours to complete this wireless communication. 52 hours minimum. I'll not go beyond 60 or something. 52 hours, because first 5 to 8 classes would be dedicated to probability random process and linear algebra, fundamentals of linear algebra. Then only you can appreciate all these facts. Otherwise, it will go crazy and you will, I know most of you are sleeping. I understand that. That happens because we have presumed that you know linear algebra. And M3, M4, if you don't revise, there is no point in reading this wireless communication. You can understand, but the concepts you will not be able to appreciate. It will be simply like he will come, he will write some mathematics, he will go. Why we have to study this? That kind of attitude you will develop if you don't understand linear algebra. So I would urge all of you to go through matrix, little bit of vector analysis, one chapter of vector algebra, how to find norms, how vector products have been calculated. If you talk about orthogonality in terms of vector addition, vector multiplication, if you have matrix, how do you talk about non-orthogonality? How do you find out scalar products and dot products? You have to do that. If you don't do that, then it becomes a crazy subject. And yeah, I got a feedback. Crazy, very difficult. Not so difficult at all. Concept, apply math. Because mathematics is correct, the concept should be correct. So it's pretty easy. So math part, okay. That ML detection part you can neglect. Only problems on ML, whatever I have given you, similar kind of problems, same problem, similar kind of problems I'll give you. Extract S1 and S2 from the given matrix. Y is given, H is given, S is given. So sorry, not S is given. Y is given and S is given. I means there is no point in calculating anything. H matrix will be given. Noise components will be given. Calculate this. Very simple problems will be given. Okay. And not for this internals. For this internals, study only selection combining, switch and stay combining, maximal ratio combining. That would be sufficient. Okay. And solve all the problems what I have given earlier. Okay, probability of outage and probability outage for selection combining, probability of outage for MRC, so on and so forth. Okay, if you can do that, I think that would be fine. And I need somewhere around 3-4 classes to finish your syllabus, because I'll not go deep into the core mathematical parts of singular value decomposition and all. I'll give you analysis and I'll try to solve 1 or 2 problems, and you will, so that you will remember all those things. And then I'll go to parallel decomposition of the channel. Once parallel decomposition and singular value decomposition is done, I'll touch upon the equalization part, one equalization, let's say MMSE equalization or zero forcing linear equalization. That will be fine. I think that is it from my side. All stories are done. Okay, if you have any clarification, message me, fix a time, we'll have a discussion upon it. Okay, anything else? There is nothing. Let me take attendance and we can leave the meeting. Okay, that's all. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Just go through once. Okay, if you go through once properly, you will remember all these concepts. If you go through today or tomorrow itself, you will definitely remember all those concepts. If you go through after 15 days, gone, nothing you can remember. Okay, just try to remember, just try to go through all those things once. All the very best. We'll see you in the next class, Thursday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Yuvraj, just message
Yes, sir.
just message me after this meeting.
Yes.